Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining on our second masterclass in this series with Mauli rituals. In the first masterclass, we were mostly talking about the basic concepts in Ayurveda, mainly the doshas, and how to understand doshas from a perspective of uh, doshas being a lens rather than being just body types. And we discussed about various things related to applying doshas in various climate situation, various cuisine, etc. So today, because the first one was a bit sort of theory oriented, so we used a slide as well to share those information. I hope it was effective and informative. And thank you once again for joining in for the next class. And today we are sort of keeping it as a more informal discussion or sort of loudly thinking about certain questions I usually come across when I am practicing in the UK, the Ayurvedic science. And one of the most common questions is about Ayurvedic cuisine. What is an Ayurvedic cuisine? So most common sort of concept is that Ayurvedic cuisine is Indian food or Indian cuisine, most of the ingredients uh, being sort of most commonly used in India, like the spices, etc. And there are also concepts like Ayurvedic cuisine is mostly vegetarian or always vegetarian, and it's either vegan. There are a lot of different concepts. Or sometimes I've come across thoughts that Ayurvedic, uh, the whole Ayurveda as a concept is more like a diet. So we will sort of explore all these questions and try and understand what is Ayurvedic cuisine, how it's connected to Indian cuisine, and what is the actual relationship between food and Ayurveda. We'll also talk about the sort of dosha profiling of commonly consumed food, some of them healthy, some of them sort of not healthy, perceived as not healthy, and see how the doshas actually um, is present in them. And we'll end with sort of some quick 3 or 4 simple tips about food in Ayurveda. So starting with the first question, is Ayurvedic cuisine equivalent to Indian cuisine? No, it is not. In Indian cuisine also, the way it is understood outside India is very different from how it is in India itself. It's a vast country with various different climate situations, various uh, sort of cultivation practices, various kinds of food ingredients used in the whole country. So the diet in, say, south of India or northern parts of India is very different from each other. So there is no uniform idea of an Indian cuisine, and there is no connection between Indian cuisine being the Ayurvedic diet. Now, the question comes from a very genuine place, because most in Ayurvedic practices or hospitals and retreats are in India, and they definitely serve Indian food. There are some advantages in terms of Indian cuisine, and that also helps it feel like it is the Ayurvedic diet. Most common advantage is that Indian cuisine is predominantly cooked. There's not a lot of uncooked ingredients in Indian cuisine. So mostly being cooked, it is actually quite easier uh, to digest if done properly using the right ingredients. The second advantage, which makes it confusing whether Indian cuisine is Ayurvedic cuisine, is the use of spices. In Indian cuisine, there's use of a lot of spices, and they almost all of them do assist the process of digestion. Most of them has other antioxidant values and healing potential. So all of that do give a certain medicinal value to the food that we consume. And obviously, being from India, it's very easy to sort of confuse that Indian cuisine is equivalent to Ayurvedic cuisine, but it is not, because Ayurvedic cuisine is mostly uh, the core understanding in Ayurveda about diet is Jagatyevam Anaushadam, which means there is nothing in the whole universe that cannot be considered as medicine. Every product, every dravya, any substance present in this universe, in its right quantity, consumed by the right person at the right time, can be medicine. And when these parameters are wrong, can be poison. When it is in a different level, it can be even consumed as food. So food, medicine, toxin, these are all same thing in an Ayurvedic point of view. Just the dose, the time, and the uh, person who is consuming will be different. So it's not that Ayurvedic cuisine and Indian cuisine is equal. There is other factors also which makes it difficult, because the modern Indian cuisine, I think one of the characteristic is the use of spices and use of mainly red chili, also a lot of red chili in Indian cooking, and sometimes that's not the most ideal for healthy digestion. And I don't think chili, uh, in fact, I think came from Chile in later, like in last 200 to 300 years, with the sailors traveling from different continents, mainly Chile, in Latin America, to India for trade and bringing for cultivation there. But before that, I think the spicy, pungent flavor came from black pepper or cumin, ginger, garlic, all of these, which were the most commonly used spices. But now it's more chili, which makes it not very Ayurvedic, unfortunately. Um, North Indian diet does include a lot of dairy usually. There's paneer, there is cottage cheese, there could be milk or milk-based different recipes used in North Indian cuisine, which can be quite heavy to digest sometimes if you're not used to it. I think the another drawback of considering Ayurvedic cuisine equivalent to Indian cuisine is that the source of protein in uh, commonly used in Indian cuisine will be lentils and pulses, and that is a good source, but a slightly inefficient source. And if you're not actually used to uh, digesting it, if your system is not capable of digesting it, you might suffer from bloatedness and gas and different issues because of not being able to digest it properly. So it's not actually true that Indian food equals Ayurvedic food, but I think there are some important points, like we discussed, that Ayurvedic food needs to be easy to digest. So it has to be either cooked, or if it is raw, it should be only consumed by somebody with very good digestive system. Um, Digestive aids like spices can be part of the cuisine itself. So we can consider those as Ayurvedic food. A balanced Ayurvedic diet is considered as a balance of different flavors in a single meal. So it's important to sort of create that variations in that inside every meal, rather than having very sort of sweet, sour, salty based meal. There should be spices, pungent flavor. There should be astringent flavor. There should be leaves, lentils, pulses, different ingredients into a meal, which will make it more balanced in terms of nutritional factors, as well as helping with digestion and the dosha balance as well. So that will be a better sort of Ayurvedic cuisine, rather than considering Indian cuisine equivalent to Ayurveda. Now, a lot of people do ask me whether Ayurveda recommends only vegetarian food. Now, that is partially true, because Ayurveda does explain various kinds of meats and various kinds of poultry that was available at that time quite elaborately in the textbooks. Most of those birds and most of those animals we don't consume as meat source anymore. So it's not purely vegetarian, but most places where Ayurvedic treatments are done, Ayurvedic cleansings are done, recommend vegetarian diet because it's easier to digest and it's more sattvic by nature. Sattvic in the sense less processed and natural, easy to get something seasonal, local, and it's easier to prepare and digest. So because of this reason, most of the time when somebody is going through an Ayurvedic diet, the amount of meat might be restricted. But otherwise, on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't say that, or in fact, it says that it should be a varied diet. And depending on your location, like for example, I was saying about your location decides what dosha tendency is predominant in that place. If you are, say, living by the sea and there is a good supply of seafood, that should be part of your diet if you can digest it and if you like, if you enjoy having it. So it's not actually about uh, being vegetarian or vegan or any particular restriction in your diet. Like I am from the south of India, so I know that it is quite common to have seafood with almost every meal in the diet there in Kerala. So it's not that it has to be vegetarian. Now, the Ayurvedic concept of a healthy meal is having different flavors in it, and it has to be properly digested, prepared with some spices to aid digestion. That will be the diet as it is defined as a healthy Ayurvedic cuisine. This can change according to body type. This can change according to one's current health situation and Agni or digestive fire. But generally, these are the parameters. And I would like to sort of apply the dosha concept on a few food items, like one or two food ingredients, to just understand how the um, the idea of Ayurvedic cuisine can be applied to any different food cuisine. So I thought of picking up a couple of unhealthy, perceived to be unhealthy factors, like say, let's say pizza. Pizza is quite commonly consumed because it's easier to get nowadays. It's being prepared a lot in the fast food chains actually make it, and it's quite easy to actually order for it and get it really quick. And it's also not that hard to prepare it yourself at home as well. So it's quite a versatile dish that has gone beyond, say, Italian cuisine into every cuisine. In India, you get pizzas which are flavored according to Indian sort of palate. So there will be spices and chili and different things in it. So I think uh, if we look at the structure of pizza and consider from an Ayurvedic point of view what it does to your body, so there is the base is usually wheat, and there will be also tomato sauce or some form of acidic sauce on top of it. There will be uh, cheese, and there will be other toppings, mostly vegetables, mushrooms, and other things. So if we look at the structure of it, we can see that most of the ingredients used in pizza are all pitta aggravating factors. So tomato sauce, and unfortunately most of the tomato sauce used in sort of mass production will be processed tomato sauce and processed cheese, along with some fresh toppings. So this process of getting things actually processed and standardized, and also use of wheat together, makes it quite pitta aggravating. The use of cheese will be more kapha increasing and makes it quite heavy. So depending on the other topics that you use, if you're, say, making a pizza with topping of, say, another processed meat like salami, or with pineapple, they're all quite acidic. So it might suit somebody who is actually having a very good, very strong digestive fire and has more to sort of a vata tendency. And if it is consumed as the main meal, preferably without using the processed ingredients, instead using fresh home prepared tomato sauce, and also fresh sort of mozzarella or some softer cheese variety with vegetables as well, and bake it all together in the oven, then it will be considered as an ideal dish for a ideal main meal for a vata tendency. In fact, use of oils and all of that will make it actually quite balanced. Um, for kapha tendency person, if you are planning to consume pizza, try and avoid too much of high cheese content, and try and avoid it too late in the evening, near to your sleep. It will increase that mucousy heavy tendency. Um, if you're pitta tendency person, unfortunately, from a dosha point of view, this won't be a best choice for a pitta balancing. So Another dish very commonly consumed here in the UK is fish and chips. Uh, I never thought I will do this, but I will attempt doing a dosha profiling on fish and chips. And fish and chips, before doing the dosha profile, if you look at it, it is quite oily. It is fried. It is quite heavy because it's root vegetables and fish deep fried in oil. Now, fish is mostly white fish or cod, or most fish in generally in Ayurveda is considered as Madhura Rasa Pradhana, which is sweet and nourishing in nature. And potato also similarly is Madhura Rasa, or sweet, and it's quite Guru Abhishandi, which means quite clogging in nature and quite heavy. And obviously, because it's fried, it's quite oily as well. So similarly, like pizza, I don't think it's a good choice for kapha tendency personality type. You wouldn't feel light, or you wouldn't feel comfortable after consuming a fried product, especially towards the evening, which is mostly the tradition, I think, uh, normal time to have it. And uh, chips also, root vegetables are considered to be quite good, but at the same time, because it's fried and sometimes it has other um, fats used on it for flavoring, it can be quite heavy for a kapha tendency person, and so it's quite kapha aggravating. For pitta, because it's if it is done properly, without using any sort of animal fat, or without using any um, additional sort of ingredients, then usually it is not very bad based on the appetite, because pitta can have a really strong appetite. And if it's consumed as the main meal, also making sure that there is not a lot of vinegar added to the chips, it will be usually all right. And for a vata tendency person, again, it has to be smaller portion. I don't think a whole big portion of fish and chips will be ideal for vata, even though it is quite uh, oily, nourishing, and opposite to vata qualities of dry and cold, it is too heavy for the digestive fire to process and absorb anything out of it. So imagine like a smaller fire, a digestive fire is compared to a smaller fire, and we've put a lot of firewood as fuel at the same time, that just puts off the fire. So in order to build up the fire, it's always best to have smaller quantities, so that the fuel gradually burns and becomes bigger and bigger. So in that point of view, I don't think they are wrongly considered as unhealthy. It's rightly too heavy to digest and maybe actually unhealthy itself. So if we take up something which is generally considered as healthy, like a regular Caesar salad with say some protein like chicken or tuna or something, this is quite cold generally, and the dressing normally has olive oil, normally has garlic and other warming ingredients, but generally it is lettuce and it is cold, and there might be mayonnaise as well, there might be vinegar as well as dressing. So in general, it might not be so good for pitta because of the presence of vinegar and egg yolk in the mayonnaise in it, and also raw garlic if it is not cooked. All of these can be quite pitta aggravating. Even though main content lettuce is cooling because of the content of these additional ingredients, you can prepare salad with lemon juice and using sort of cooked ginger and garlic as sort of a dressing with olive oil and with other ingredients. It should be actually fine for pitta, but it's best to avoid with vinegar anyway. For vata tendency, it's always best to have warm and cooked preparation. So definitely it's recommended to have a cooked salad if you're having it regularly. For kapha tendency, it might be actually good. It's quite sort of uh, a good meal which is not too heavy to digest, and it's also quite sort of nutritiously balanced. If you add proteins to it, that will also make sure that it's nutritionally balanced. So for kapha tendency, it is definitely ideal to have some form of salad, and Caesar salad won't be actually a bad idea. You can add olives and other things into it to improve its oily nature if you are not kapha, and if you're having it vata, or as a vata tendency person, if you ever have salads, I usually recommend to pair it with some herbal tea or warm drinks to counteract the cold nature of the food. So you can always balance it out by including things which are opposite in quality, and make sure that you have a good balance of different qualities and different flavors within the same dish as well. So I hope this gives you some idea how dosha analysis can be applied to different cuisines, and try and understand food based on generally its portion, its way of preparation, the ingredients, not just based on ingredients alone. Ingredients can be important, but depending on how it is prepared, what kind of portion you are having, and what time you are having, its impact on your body can be different. So I just thought it would be good to have some examples for you to observe. And now I would like to end this masterclass with sharing general dietary guidance, two or three very simple rules that Ayurveda always says should be followed in terms of eating a healthy meal. The first one, I think the most important one, we all already mentioned, like a balanced meal. And a balanced meal in an Ayurvedic point of view is a balance of all six flavors: sweet, sour, salty, spicy, bitter, and astringent. So there should be elements from each of these in your diet. Sweet doesn't have to be sugary food. Sweet can be even poultry or fish, root vegetables, grains. All of these mostly are considered as sweet. Sour doesn't mean like vinegary sour. Vinegar is also sour, but you can have sour berries or sour elements like tamarind or lemon, lime, etc. Added into your diet. That will help the absorption, that will help the breaking down of some of the nutrients which is harder to digest. Salt not only provides that appetite and taste, it's also important for balancing our electrolyte balance, make sure our circulation functions all right. So salt taste should be also there. Spices, like I said in the beginning, is quite important in Ayurveda. It's not about chilies, it's about all the other spices which helps with the digestion, helps with the absorption process. Make sure that difficult to digest food like lentils or pulses can be broken down and absorbed and dealt with quite effectively. Bitter and astringent is also very important. Bitter flavor can come from bitter vegetables, any vegetables other than root vegetables. Astringent can be the flavor of lentils, pulses, raw banana, which can be used as ingredient for curries, which usually we do in South India. So it can be any sort of vegetable ingredients, which is not sort of like sweet, sour, salty, but still actually balances off the effect of other flavors. So it's important to have a balanced meal. The second golden rule is about portions. The right portion of a meal is very important according to Ayurveda, whichever cuisine you have. And the best way to analyze, I feel, is to look at your own appetite. So if you have a meal and feel hungry or feel light and even ready for another meal in 2 hours time, that is sort of an ideal portion for you. If you consume a meal and after 2 hours you're still sort of full, heavy, and you're feeling sluggish, then the portion is too much. And if you're feeling hungry too soon, then that means it's not sufficient for you. Now, this can change, this portion can change according to your activity routine and your appetite, the seasons. All of this affect this. So it's actually a quite transient sort of a parameter, but still it will be good to actually analyze whether what you ate the previous meal was good portion or not. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to eat a meal every 2 hours. You feel light, you feel like digestion is complete. That sort of the time body actually does healing, repairing, all of that. If our focus is always on digestion and if your stomach is full all the time, that is also not ideal. So it doesn't mean that you have to eat meal every 2 hours. Now, my teacher always used to tell me while we were doing our Ayurvedic study in India, that food is never supposed to be eaten. Food has to be, you have to drink your food. the strongest part of our body is our dental enamel, the teeth enamel. And it's there for a reason, because we don't have methods to break down physically food inside our tummy. So eating a very healthy food, but then you are swallowing it quickly, talking in between and not paying attention to it, is not an ideal recipe for health. To get the maximum benefit and absorption of nutrients from any meal, you should chew and chew and chew and almost drink every part of the food. So food should be actually drunk. You shouldn't be actually eating food. That's one thing that I always try to actually explain to people who see me, and also myself try and apply, to chew things properly so that it's broken down. Uh, salivary, uh, Salivary secretions are mixed quite well, and the first process of digestion starts in your mouth itself. So we should allow that process happening. And the one last recommendation for healthy eating is try and include, we call it sattvic diet, but then try and include intelligent food in your diet. Intelligent food are those food which has some information in it. Like, for example, if you take two sources of protein, like mung beans, whole mung beans, and say chicken breast, both of those are good protein sources, one from plant origin, one from poultry. The chicken can be very well absorbed, very well digested, but at the same time, it lacks that life force in it. We can know that because if we try to sprout the uh, mung beans, it will grow into a new life. And that information is stored in those beans. So those life force makes mung beans intelligent compared to the chicken breast. It's not about nutritional source, but it's about having a real unprocessed intelligent food almost all the time. So try and include foods like this: sprouted beans, different nuts and seeds, activated by soaking it overnight, regularly in your diet. And try avoid food which has sort of been processed to such an extent that it has lost its purpose, and it's mostly restricted to just give taste. Food has to go beyond the taste, and I always believe that we need to use all our five senses: feel it, smell it, taste it, and absorb the whole benefit from the food. So cuisine is about not Indian cuisine. Ayurvedic cuisine is about easy to digest, easy to absorb, uh, good complex combination of various food groups. And I hope that my examples and basic explanation did help you understand a little bit more. And I thank you very much for attending the second of these master classes. We're doing two more with more practical application, um, or ideas of applying this science in your daily life. The next one will be about home remedies and application of Ayurveda in common ailments, and how we can actually take care of it and prevent it from progressing into severe symptoms. And in the final class, fourth lecture, we will talk about Panchakarma and try and understand how Panchakarma can be utilized in a modern lifestyle perspective. Thank you very much for attending this, and I hope to see you again for the next one. Bye-bye.